Everyone, John Doyle from Optix EQ, and today I'm going to look at the Manila Grade 3 Stakes Race at Belmont on Friday, July the 7th, race 9, and it looks like a really good race. I mean, it's a Grade 3, but I think it's really more like a Grade 2, Grade 1. It's 1 mile on the turf, and it's got some nice horses in here. So we're going to look at this race. The first thing I want you to observe is how well defined the plot is. It's green, really a sharp green. You could, again, what does that all mean? This means plot's a little bit more predictive. It's a model, you know, the way we look at this, and you can see how the horses kind of line up on that white band. You know, I've got a line that's drawn on, and that just tells us that's kind of a nice fit. The other thing that you'll notice is the contention speed rating is high, but I want you to look at the par line here, right? You got, you know, 3 horses that are above the par line on standard that are all squares, the 2, 4, and 5. That's pretty quality. I mean, these horses are running above the par for the second call, but relatively speaking, they still have the best closing ability than some of the other horses in this race. Gives them an advantage. So you'll see the 2, 4, and 5 are the favorites. And I'm trying to think about an approach to playing this race, because I think all 3 have a legitimate shot. Prefer the 2 and the 5, and maybe the 2. It all depends on price. And then there's a horse that I think might be fly under the radar a little bit, and we'll talk about that one as we get into it. But I want to evaluate each of the horses and show you why I came up with what I came up with, and then see what you come up with. So let me clear this out. So the first horse I want to look at is, I just want to kind of get rid of 2 horses here that I think may be up against it. That's the 1 and the 8. Let me go to the grid. These are 2 horses that have never been on the turf. Tough race where you have graded stakes horses in here that have won on the turf going long, and you get 2 horses that have never been on the turf. It's a tough assignment here. So let's look at the 1 and 8 and why I'm eliminating them. Armstrong is a nice horse, kind of developing. Won a good race on synthetic. Again, for me, synthetic is not turf. It doesn't translate that way. It's a separate surface, in my opinion. But it's a good, nice, improving horse. I just think he's over his head a little bit here. You can see the horses, if you look at his Optix fig ranges that he's been running against, 79, 85, 75, 80. That's well below the 91 to 97. This is going to take like a mid to high 90s to win this race. And I don't know, coming into this race on turf for the first time, that's a good bet. But he's a horse to watch. He's an improving horse, and he's a nice horse. I just don't like him in this situation. The 8 is the other horse that I'm against. Again, look at the speed figures of the horses he ran in his last race, was 66 to 74, so well below. Again, it was a synthetic race, not a turf race. He's run well on synthetic, so it's something that you want to pay attention to. But you could just see from a pace perspective, even if he's able to keep up with the 2, 4, and 5, he's not able to outkick him. So for me, I'm going to take out the 1 and the 8. The 7 is an interesting horse. He's got a big circle in quadrant 4, and usually like just an easy elimination. But and I'm still going to play against him, but as a horse that you want to watch, because he hasn't run a bad race. We kind of define this as no red keywords. So this horse hasn't showed a red keyword excuse in his debut. The only thing I would say is that since the second race after Saratoga, the horse did not improve number-wise, but he's still a nice horse. He's a Chad Brown horse. Pratt, obviously, and Ortiz had their choices, and he ends up with Davis on him. He's coming off a 264-day layoff. I just think this horse is going to need a race, especially, I just think he's going to need a race. So it's a horse that you may want to pay attention to down the road. I just don't think, again, situationally, this is the time for him. So gonna not look at him. And then the 3 was the other. He's a deep closer. And the problem I have with the 3, you can see again, running against inferior animals. Hasn't run bad though. Just don't like to slow out of the gate in 2 starts. That's gonna really leave it. He's gonna leave him behind these horses. And if he gets out of the gate slow again, and he's kind of slow out of the gate, you can see 8th, 12th, 6th, 9th. He's going to be at a severe disadvantage. So kind of get rid of him. So we're down to the 3 favorites and the 6. And I want to start with the 6 because I think this horse is a little bit sneaky. Here's a horse that's started his career, I guess that's, I would say, Europe, probably Ireland or something. I don't know for sure. But anyway, horse first start in the States is in a stakes race, non-graded. Doesn't run all that great. Probably needed the race. Comes back and wins the Woodhaven, a stakes race. And you can see he had trouble in that race. He's still able to avoid it, overcome the trouble and win the race. Like to see that. He runs at 87. This is early on in his 3-year-old career, right? So there's still more upside with this horse. Now, this race was a little sneaky. When I first saw this race, I didn't give it much notice. And then I kind of rewatched the race. And in the race, I thought the tactics were kind of weird. You know, this horse was ranked. They were pulling him back. It was a longer race than he ever ran in. You thought he might want to be a little bit closer. But they held him back all the way back to last. And then he kind of settled. And he was behind the field, and the race was won by a wire-to-wire horse. But I noticed that this horse made a real wide move off the turn, coming off the turn, and really accelerated for a little bit. And if you looked at some of I kind of just went and looked at some of his internal fractions, and they were very good. They're very sharp. And then he just completely flattened out. That was a good race. You know, that's Cowboy of today's race. He's a grade 2 race. I just think that race was better than a look. I thought the tactics were wrong in that race. He probably gets a faster pace in this race. And if he does, I think he can be able to maybe close into that. I like the shortening up to a mile because he seemed to run good and then flatten out in the last furlong and a half last time. I think this was a little bit sneaky. He's still got some more upside. You know, there's no red in his form yet. And of the Chad Brown horses, I just kind of like this one. I know Ortiz gets off. I like Rosario for this horse. I think that's the right thing. So I think this horse could hit the board or maybe even upset if something weird happens. So number 6. So the top 3, how am I going to play this? Well, the top 3 all could win. And you can see there, if you look at their form, it's really good. The 2, the 4, I'm going to start with the 4 because that's the one I like the least. And just the reason being that he's just running against less horses than the other 2. This is his 3rd off a layoff. Thought he got a pretty good trip last time. Made the most of it, but it got a pretty good trip. I'm not sure he's going to get the same kind of trip, and maybe he will. I just think from a price perspective, he's 5-2. He's probably going to be the second choice. You know, just again, you know, they're splitting hairs, but that's what we're looking at. And I just think maybe the 2 is going to get a better trip than him. The 5 is the favorite. And rightfully so, better than looked effort last time in the Penn National Mile. So it's really done nothing wrong. You know, the figures a little dipped a little bit. You know, maybe that could be due with the trouble he's had in a couple of these races. That's something to watch. His best figure was actually on a synthetic track. But not hard to knock. It's just that, I just don't want to take the price of 5, it's going to be in these 9 to 5 in the morning line or 8 to 5. He's going to probably be shorter than that. The 2 was the horse I thought was kind of like the non-favorite and the 3rd choice in this race. Really warranted a look. This horse could potentially be on the lead. Depends on what they do with the 8. How committed they are to the lead with the 8, and see how he takes to the turf first time. But the 2 could be out there by himself. And I just think this horse has showed a ton of ability since switching to the turf. We rarely give A minuses, right? And so this horse earned an A minus in his turf debut, came back in a non-stakes at Tampa and won with, all from a little bit off the pace. And I thought the last race was his first race in 84 days was very good. He was ranked early. It was a really fast pace too. And he kind of had to take hold. He settled a bit into the pocket. And then he made this like really quick move. Again, the fractions were really fast. And I think he might have moved a bit too early. That's why you see the move and the tactic. If you look at the extended note, rank early, just behind the strong pace, settled and got in clear on the second turn, made a quick move for the lead, leaving the turn, maybe moved a little too soon, and he was caught, he was run down. I thought this was a good race, a really good race, especially now he's second off a layoff. I think this horse has a little bit more speed. Maybe they'll let him get out there. If they let him relax on the lead, this horse could be dangerous reeling in late. If he's a non-favorite, this is the horse I prefer in this situation. But I'm not knocking the floor. The 5, I prefer the 5 over the 4. I just think he's a more quality horse. So I can't argue with that. But for me, trying to play around maybe with the 2 and the 6, and play around a little bit and exactas and tries with that one. And the other horses for me are pretty much tosses. So that's the Manila on Friday, July 7th at Belmont. Check us out at OptixEQ on Twitter. and go to our website, optixeq.com. Really, some really good notes and plots this weekend, especially Friday. It's a great card. This is not the only good race at Belmont on Friday. It's the, it's the feature, but there's a lot of good racing on Friday at Belmont. So check it out. And thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting Optix.